We are back working in the studio today doing some more quilting craft type stuff, and I thought what an opportunity to show you a little tool that I love when it comes to making my placemats. So we have been busy cutting squares. Let me just show you what I mean. Squares. I do 3.5-inch squares for my placemats. I'll show you a placemat that I've got on the go. There's the little squares there. As you can see, very farm, patchwork, that kind of thing. And when you go down the line of making a lot of placemats, that's cutting a lot of squares. And one thing that I have certainly found helpful with this is my fabric go cutters. Because basically, I'm working on blues, reds, that sort of fabric today because I have 2 of these and I want to make a couple sets of them. So I'm going to show you what I've got cut, and I've got one more piece to cut, and I wanted to show you how we run that through the machine. So as you can see here so far, I'm working with a lot of different fabrics. I like to keep my placemats all kind of different. That makes it original, and it also is very what's the word? Lenient, I suppose, when you start to run out of a fabric. I do make a lot of these placemats, and a lot of times people come back to me and they want more or a couple more. And I try and keep them all different. That way, if I'm missing a fabric for one, it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. Like, for example, here, I only have that little pile of this color left. Once it's gone, it's gone. Same thing here. I've just chopped everything up. So, I mean, there's a lot there, but when it's gone, it's gone. So I definitely like doing that because it makes it all very, easy to play around with them and move them around and bring in new fabrics, that sort of thing. So I used to do this all rotary cutter and ruler, not one square, but basically strip cutting kind of thing, and then cutting them into squares after that. And to be honest, it started to develop into not so precise, which was also one issue. And it was a lot of work. So definitely the Go Cutter has changed the game when it comes to doing patchwork type quilts. All right, so here is my Go Cutter. It's basically easy to store. There's not too much to it. It is heavy, I will say that, but it's got to be built pretty good. And it basically just opens like this. This is kind of like a bar here that when you turn the crank, feeds it through. It's wonderful. And what I have is a double 3.5 square fabric cutter. So when I run this through, I can do 6 layers of fabric at a time, and it's cutting 2. So you're getting basically 12 squares every time you cut through, and they're always perfectly square, perfectly even, always the same. Now, you run this through with a plastic mat on top. The plastic mat is probably the one part I would say that is a little bit disappointing with these, in the fact that I do find, now I do cut a lot of fabric, but I do find I have to replace these very often. I mean, I would say probably I go through, just for cutting placemats, I go through at least 2 or 3 of these a year. They just aren't made for the repetitious cutting in the same spot. So you can see the kind of etched in part that is from my placemat squares. But then if you look around the outer bit, you can also see I've done some 5.5-inch squares or 5-inch squares, which also uses a different part. The part that usually goes on them is the center, because it's usually there's a line in the center and you're constantly cutting that. But it's very simple. At this moment, I'm just doing 1 fabric at a time. So I'm actually only cutting through 4 layers instead of 6. So you can see I lined it up. I actually have a piece of masking tape at the top that allows me to know where I need to line up my fabric to be straight. And I usually just feel down, especially when I've got this salvaged edge, just feeling down to make sure that my blade is going to cut off that whole part so I don't have wasted pieces. And then basically from that point, I push it up to the bar and turn, and it starts to go. And as soon as it starts to go through, I just kind of fold that edge over so that it doesn't get all wrinkly and run it through. And I will admit, my cutting thingy is getting a little bit, when this starts to get not perfect, you start to get a few little threads that don't cut, but to me that's not a big issue. I'm going to keep going because it's still got some life in it. It's wonderful, and I can do this whole sheet through and end up with 30 squares in no time at all, and then I can move on to the next one. I'll show one more here. We just kind of slide it over, lay that down on there. I'm probably shaking my camera a little bit. Didn't think about that part. Always perfectly square. Wonderful. And you can see what I mean here. Those few little pieces that just stick. But they come off easily enough. But one thing that does happen when you use the fabric go cutters is you often end up with strips of fabric that are left over. And I just collect these and collect them because sometimes they're great for log cabin quilts, that sort of stuff. But one thing that I am working on that I'm super, super excited about is this. I have been working on a crazy quilt with all of my scrap fabric from quilts and placemats and things like that. I mean, every quilter does this. You have bags and bags of scraps that you one day intend to use. Well, this is my project that I'm working on right now. It's just a quilt as you go onto a piece of flannel, and then I'm going to do another back with more quilting afterwards. But my thoughts are, let me just show you how beautiful this looks on black, because it's gorgeous, and I think it's what I'm going to do, but we'll see what you think. I have to admit, I love quilt show and tell time. I do. I'm just going to lay out a piece of black fabric here, tip you down. So I've just kind of quickly thrown out a piece of black fabric, but just wait till you see how these pop when you get them on the black. Just gorgeous. Let me see if I can get another one. So let's pull this up. Come on, I don't want to wreck all my piles. Like that. And I've also done some in a smaller size. So I'm not sure whether to do like a row of smaller ones or whether that gets too, don't want the same colors together in the middles, or whether that gets too busy right there. But I do love the idea of it and doing a big one so there'd be these kind of rows of these black squares in and amongst all the crazy quilt. I think it would work, and I think it would look really, really, really pretty. Now, saying that, I still have a lot more patches to go of the crazy quilt, but I'm getting there, and I'm super motivated, so it may just happen. But tell me what you think of this, if you think it's a little too busy here, or whether you think I should just go for it, because I'm kind of leaning towards going for it. But you can see the progression of different fabrics, I think, is really quite neat as I go through making placemats and stuff. So anyway, stay tuned to see how that goes, because I'm super excited for that one. All right, so first thing that I do when it comes to putting these placemats together is I have an array of different squares and fabrics that I know I want to use. And I choose, say, 10 fabrics that are going to be in every placemat. And basically I kind of put those where I can get access to them, and then everything else just becomes sort of a draw bank. So I kind of lay out the first 10, and then I grab what I think is going to look good and mix them all around, and that's how everything ends up never being the same. So we're going to make one here, or we're not going to make it, we're just going to get it laid out, because that's the first process or step, is to just lay it out. So Here you can see we're going with the farmhouse one. I just kind of lay them out. There is no rhyme nor reason. And in the end, I get moving them all around and figuring out just what looks right. I have so many piles of fabric, I can't get them all onto the camera here. But that's okay. And you can see some are light, some are dark. And then I just kind of pick and choose as to what I think works where. I definitely want another red. I think we'll probably maybe put that right there. And there we go. I think that's going to work. And basically from that point, I just gather them up in an order that I remember all the time. And once I have probably at least 8 of them made, I then go ahead and sew them into their tops, like this one here. You can see I have 8 of these ones on the go. So there, I get a couple sets to that stage, and then I'm going to cut batting and backing, and I will get them all put together, and then we get to the quilting and binding. It's kind of like an assembly line for one person, but it works for me. It allows me to get a lot produced and still keep things fun, and that's something that I think is really important as I go into the crafting type thing, is it's got to stay fun, otherwise you don't stick with it. Well, we are to the final stages of a lot of these placemats. I've got the blue ones all done, and I'm working on these tan ones here. Basically, I am binding everything now, and then I will show you the final results. Maybe I'll do a video on this machine binding method at some point. If anybody's actually interested, they can let me know in the comments. But I'm going to get these tan placemats finished up, and then I'm going to show you all the stuff we've gotten done. Well, we're a few weeks later and finally have some placemats to show for all this hard work. But definitely that Go Cutter really helps speed up the process. I mean, I'd be a couple of weeks more if I was still cutting all those little squares. But we'll show you where we got to. We ended up, I love these, such beautiful, almost like Delft pottery colors, which are quite nice. We ended up getting 8 of those made up. Another one of my favorites, I call them farmhouse. They're kind of like that with that bit of red and some of the floral patterns. But we did get 8 of those made as well, all bound and done. Some pretty tan ones all finished up. I do want to get some more of these done. I do have some squares cut. Right now I only have a set of 4 of those, but I do want to get more done before the conference and our little vendor stall there. But the other ones that we did not get done was those pretty burgundy ones. So these are already kind of put together with their batting and the backing. So I have to just quilt them and then bind them. So they will get done. I got 8 of those on there. So I am excited to get those ones finished as well and get on to a few more things. But I'll just kind of show you them here laid out on the table. Super pleased with this. And again, that Go Cutter worked amazing for doing this. I didn't show it, but maybe in the next one when I talk about binding, I will show. I also have a cutter for it that does all my binding strips, which is so awesome because they're perfect in uniform all the time, which makes it really easy to do machine binding. So stay tuned for that. But as we exit the show here, I will show you what we've got finished up. Those blue, the tan, the green ones were already finished, but I'm throwing them in here just to show you what I've got. Same with these nice bright colored ones here. They're such a nice summery print. I love that one. I'm not sure my camera's picking it up perfectly because they're a little bit more teal than the blue that they're looking on the screen. And our nice green ones there. I'd like to get some more of them done. I've got all the squares cut, so I've been working away on cutting squares. Let's see if I have time to make some more placemats. But all in all, super pleased with what we've gotten done here so far. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow along for the next quilting video.